I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mark, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 8 years now. We met in college, got married pretty young, and for the most part, I thought we had a good thing going. She's attractive, confident, a little bitchy sometimes, but I always chalked it up to her being fiercely independent. We had a pretty normal life. Work, weekends away, dinners with friends. Nothing too exciting, but comfortable enough. About 6 months ago, things started feeling off. She'd be more secretive with her phone, sneaking around when she thought I wasn't looking. I'd catch her hiding texts or deleting browsing history on the laptop. I'd ask her what was going on, and she'd blow me off with some bullshit about needing privacy or being tired from work. I brushed it aside mostly, thinking maybe I was just overthinking it. But deep down, I felt a gnawing suspicion, like she was hiding something. Then came the trip. We had booked a luxury vacation, one of those weeks-long getaways to the Caribbean. Everything was perfect, or so I thought. We flew first class, stayed in a fancy resort, the whole 9 yards. Honestly, I was just happy to unwind, but Lisa was acting weird the whole time. She'd occasionally get calls and excuse herself, saying she was just talking to her sister or friend, but I could tell she was hiding something. She'd also disappear for long stretches during the day, claiming she was out exploring, but I always felt like she was meeting someone. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I kept quiet. Real shocker came on the last night of the trip. We were in our room packing up, and I decided to check her phone for some reason. Maybe a gut instinct. I found a string of texts between her and some guy named Jake. Honestly, I'd never heard of him before. The messages were flirty, him calling her babe, saying how much he missed her, telling her she was hot as hell. There were pictures, too, her in a bikini, him sending a selfie of himself shirtless. My stomach turned. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. I sat there stunned. My mind raced. How long had this been going on? Was it just this trip? Or had it been happening for months? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I kept digging. I found a few more messages, some that mentioned meeting up later, and even a few suggestive plans. It was clear. She'd been cheating, and she'd been doing it for a while. I was furious, hurt, and honestly felt like I'd been played for a fool. I kept thinking about the times she had lied to me, the little things I ignored. All those moments I thought were innocent, turns out she was sneaking around behind my back. That night I confronted her. I waited until she went asleep, then I quietly checked her phone again. I'd already seen enough, but I needed to hear her deny it to see her reaction. I woke her up and showed her the messages. I wanted her to explain herself. Her reaction was a mix of shock and anger. She looked me dead in the eyes and lied, said it was all a mistake, just some stupid flirtation, that Jake was just a coworker she had a few drinks with. She insisted it was innocent, that she never meant for it to go this far, but the texts told a different story. There was no way she could deny it. She called Jake just a hookup, then flipped it around and said I was overreacting, that she'd never cheat on me if I didn't act so paranoid. I felt a mixture of betrayal and rage. How could she do this? After all these years, after everything we built? I couldn't sleep that night, just staring at the ceiling, feeling a mix of sadness and hot fury. I knew I had to make a decision, whether to forgive her, try to work things out, or walk away. But right then, I realized trust was gone, and I was left with a crushing sense of betrayal I didn't know how to handle. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. My head was pounding, my stomach was in knots, and every time I looked at Lisa, I saw a stranger. She was still asleep, her face peaceful, but I knew better. I knew what she'd done. I couldn't believe I had been naive enough to think that our life was perfect, that I knew everything about her. Turns out I didn't know her at all. I sat there for a while trying to process everything. I thought about the hints I'd ignored, the little things that now seemed huge. All those late nights she claimed were work-related. The odd hours when she'd suddenly disappear without telling me where she was going. The way she'd get defensive when I asked questions. Now it all made sense. She'd been sneaking around, lying, hiding another life from me. And the worst part, I felt like a fool for not seeing it sooner. I decided I couldn't just brush this off. I needed to confront her again with everything out in the open. I brewed some coffee, sat her up, and looked her dead in the eyes. Her face was already defensive, like she knew what was coming. I pulled out the phone with the messages and laid it on the table. She looked at it, her eyes narrowing, trying to come up with an excuse, any excuse. "Lisa," I said carefully, "how long has this been going on?" She looked away for a moment, then scoffed. "It's not what you think," she snapped. "Jake was just some guy I met at a bar during one of my girls' trips. It was just sex, stupid drunk sex, and it meant nothing." I rolled my eyes. "You expect me to believe that, after all those messages, the pictures, the plans, and how come I never knew about this guy before?" She shrugged, fake nonchalance. "Because you're busy with work, you don't pay attention. I didn't think it mattered. It was just a mistake, a one-time thing. I swear I didn't mean to hurt you. It's not like I love him or anything." That's when I felt my blood boil. The way she lied so effortlessly, like I was supposed to buy her bullshit. I couldn't stand it. I told her she was full of shit, that I saw how she looked at him in those messages, how she clearly wanted to be with him. She continued to deny everything, throwing out more lies about how she was stressed, bored, or just caught up in a moment. I knew she was lying, but her words hit me like a punch to the gut. For a moment I doubted myself, wondering if I was overreacting. Maybe. I was just jealous, but the evidence was too clear. She'd been unfaithful and she didn't care enough to hide it properly. The girl I'd loved, the woman I'd married, was cheating on me with some pilot. A damn pilot. That's when I realized this wasn't just a fling. It was a full-blown affair, and she had no intention of stopping. I told her she needed to leave that day, that I wasn't going to sit around and be played for a fool anymore. She threw a tantrum, called me crazy, accused me of invading her privacy, and started crying. I didn't care. The betrayal was too deep. I'd been blind for so long, but now I saw her true colors. It was over. I didn't even want to argue, I just wanted her gone. I packed her bags myself, feeling numb and empty. The house suddenly felt colder, emptier, like I'd lost a part of myself. As she collected her stuff, she kept telling me I was making a mistake, that she loved me, that it was just a one-time thing, that she'd never do it again. I didn't buy it. I knew better now. I knew she'd lied right to my face, and that she'd been betraying me for months behind my back. The worst part was, I still loved her, or at least I thought I did. But love doesn't mean much when the person you trusted the most has been screwing around right under your nose. I watched her walk out the door with that fake, bitchy smile, knowing that from now on, I'd never be able to look at her the same way again. After Lisa left, I sat alone in that empty house and finally allowed myself to feel everything I'd been suppressing, the shock, the anger, the deep sense of betrayal. It hit me hard, like a punch to the chest. I kept thinking about all the times she lied, all the moments I missed clues, all the little things I had dismissed. The worst part was, I still cared about her, even now. But that care had turned into a strange mix of hurt and frustration. I couldn't wrap my head around how someone I trusted so completely could just toss that trust aside for some pilot who probably barely knew her. I started digging through my feelings, trying to figure out what to do next. I realized I was angry at her, not just for cheating, but for how she'd lied, for treating our relationship like it was disposable. But underneath the anger, there was this crushing sadness. I kept thinking about the years we'd spent together, the plans we'd made, the future I'd envisioned. It all felt shattered now, like it had been made of glass that was just waiting to break. I spent the next few days wrestling with what to do. I couldn't just sit around feeling sorry for myself, so I started putting my focus into action. I reached out to a lawyer just to understand my options. I also began to think about personal healing, about how I'd move on from this mess. People say time heals all wounds, but right now, it felt like I was just trying to hold myself together, one day at a time. I knew that I couldn't keep living in the past, but damn, it was hard to let go of what I thought we had. One thing I did realize, I couldn't stay in that house. Walking through it, seeing her things still there, made me feel sick. I decided I had to find a new place, a fresh start, somewhere I could breathe again without the ghost of her betrayal looming over me. I started packing, feeling numb but determined to reclaim some control of my life. I also started seeing a therapist. Honestly, that helped more than I expected. Talking about everything, about how I felt, about how betrayed I was, helped me put my mind in some kind of order. I didn't want to be angry forever, but I needed to process what had happened. Meanwhile, I kept replaying that last confrontation in my head, her desperate lies, her fake tears, her all-too-casual dismissals. It made me realize how much she'd been manipulating me, how she'd been playing the long game while I was just clueless. I wondered how I'd missed so many signs, how I'd been so blind. And I felt a deep sense of regret, not for loving her, but for trusting her so blindly. Now I understood. Trust, once broken, isn't easy to fix. It's like trying to glue shattered glass back together, fragile and bound to crack again. So I made a firm decision. I was going to chase after her, beg her to stay, or try to fix what was broken. I knew I deserved better, even if it hurt like hell to admit it. I told myself I'd focus on rebuilding my life piece by piece. I'd start over, find happiness again, even if it meant being alone for a while. My heart was battered, yeah, but I was still standing. That's what mattered. I understood one thing clearly now. I'd never let someone betray me like that again. Trust was earned, and I was done handing it out like candy. That was the first step of a long road ahead, but it was one I was finally ready to take. The days that followed were a blur. Moving out of the house was harder than I expected. Every corner, every piece of furniture reminded me of what I lost. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I'd been so blind to her betrayal. It's like I was living in a fog, and now that it lifted, everything was painfully clear. I kept replaying the last few months, trying to find where I went wrong, what I missed. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about blame. It was about facing the truth and deciding how to move forward. I found a small apartment not far from my work and started settling in. It was a fresh start, but it didn't erase the pain. I'd tell myself every day that I deserved better, that I'd find someone who valued me, who wouldn't cheat and lie. Still, that thought was hard to hold on to when I'd wake up alone, in that empty space, with only my thoughts for company. I avoided going home at first just to escape the reminders of her. I'd go to the gym, meet friends, and try to keep busy. But inside, I felt this gnawing emptiness, a hollow ache I couldn't shake. People kept telling me I was better off without her, that I dodged a bullet. Honestly, part of me believed that. But another part felt broken, like I'd lost a huge chunk of my life, my trust, and my happiness. It's funny how love and hate can coexist in your mind. I hated her for what she did, but I also missed the person I thought she was. Every now and then, I'd catch myself thinking about the good times, the memories we made, and then I'd feel guilty for even doing that. Because it was all a lie. She was never the woman I thought I knew. One of the hardest parts was facing everyone else's reactions. Some friends told me I was lucky to get out early, that she was a bitch for cheating and I should forget her. Others looked at me with pity, like I was some victim of a cruel game. But I didn't want pity. I just wanted to understand how someone I loved could do this to me. I started questioning everything, my judgment, my choices, even myself. Was I too passive? Did I miss the signals? Could I have done something different? The guilt crept in, making it harder to breathe sometimes. Then I started noticing something strange. Every so often I'd get a text from an unknown number. No name, no explanation. At first I ignored it, thinking it was just some spam or a prank. But then I received a message that chilled me to the bone. "You don't know what she's really like. She's a liar. Watch your back." I stared at the screen, confused and furious. Who was this? Was this some kind of sick joke, or was it true? My mind raced and I felt the old paranoia creeping in. Maybe she wasn't the only one hiding secrets. Maybe she had more skeletons in her closet. I showed the message to a friend who told me to block the number and stay alert. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something. It felt like the universe was throwing me signs I wasn't ready to see. All I knew was I had to be careful. If she was capable of lying and cheating so ruthlessly, I couldn't trust anyone, not even myself sometimes. I was ready to move on, but part of me wondered if she'd come back, trying to play the victim or spin some new lie. Whatever it was, I refused to be dragged down again. In the midst of all this chaos, I realized I had to focus on myself. Therapy helped me work through the anger and sadness, but I also started reading about healing and rebuilding trust. Less for her, more for me. I stopped thinking about her every second, started reclaiming small pieces of my life. I even picked up some new hobbies, things I'd always wanted to try but never did. It wasn't much, but it helped me feel a little more in control. I told myself that someday I'd be okay again. I just had to get through this storm one day at a time. The weeks turned into months, and slowly I started feeling like myself again, at least a little. The pain of betrayal never fully went away, but it became something I learned to live with. I'd wake up some mornings and realize I hadn't thought about her for a while, and that small victory made me feel stronger. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd left something unfinished. The mysterious messages, the betrayal, all of it still haunted me like unresolved chapters I didn't know how to close. One day, I decided I needed to find out who was sending those texts. It could be nothing, but I had to know. I hired a private investigator just to see if I could get some answers. It felt weird, kind of humiliating even, but I was desperate. After a few days, he got back to me with some surprising news. The number was linked to someone in her circle, someone she'd be close to during her girls' trips. The investigator mentioned she had a lot of secret contacts, some of whom she'd never even mentioned. It was starting to make sense why she was so secretive, why she'd lie so effortlessly. That's when I decided to confront her again, this time with hard evidence. I didn't want to ruin her life, but I needed to see her reaction when faced with the truth. I found her on social media, saw she was still posting pictures with her friends, and even saw a recent trip she'd taken with a group of women. I sent her a message, just saying I knew everything, that I'd been told she'd been hiding more than I thought. I told her I wasn't interested in playing her games anymore, that I was done pretending I was okay with her lies. Her reply was classic Lisa, defensive, bitchy, full of excuses. She said I was paranoid, that I was stalking her, that I was crazy for suspecting her. She told me I needed therapy, that I was overreacting, and that I should just mind my own business. I could feel my blood start to boil. How dare she call me crazy? I had all the proof and she still refused to own up. But honestly, I wasn't surprised. That was her MO: lie, deny, deflect. That's what she'd always done when things got uncomfortable. In that moment, I realized I had to cut her out completely. I couldn't keep living in this chaos, this cycle of betrayal and lies. I told her enough was enough. I didn't want her in my life anymore. That I was done being her punching bag, her fool. I blocked her on social media, changed my number, and made a conscious decision to move forward. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, letting go of someone I still loved, even if that love was now poisoned. But I knew I had to. For my sanity, my future, my peace. As I sat there, feeling a strange mixture of relief and regret, I thought about everything I'd been through. All the hopes I'd had for us, all the trust I'd given her. It was like watching a house burn down in slow motion, but I also saw a chance for a new beginning, one where I could rebuild and be truly happy. I realized that sometimes the only way to heal is to let go of what's hurting you, no matter how much you still care. I was done chasing shadows, done waiting for her to own up or change her mind. Now I just had to focus on myself. It's funny, you never think something like this will happen to you. You think you're safe, that your life is secure. But betrayal can come from anywhere, even from the person you love most. I can't control what she did, but I can control how I respond. And right now, I choose to move forward, to rebuild my life from the ground up. Because if I've learned anything, it's that the pain eventually fades, but the lessons stay with you. And the biggest lesson I've taken from this is that no matter how much you trust someone, always remember that trust is something you earn, not give away blindly. Looking back now, I realize that this whole nightmare taught me more than I ever expected. It showed me how fragile trust is, how quickly it can shatter, and how important it is to value myself enough not to accept betrayal. I spent so long blaming her, feeling angry and hurt, but eventually I understood that this was about me reclaiming my strength, my sense of self-worth. I learned that love isn't just about holding on through the good times, it's about respect, honesty, and integrity. Without those, everything else crumbles. I'm not going to lie, it's been a brutal journey. There were nights I wondered if I'd ever feel whole again, if I'd ever trust someone like I trusted her. But slowly, I've started to rebuild my life, not around the pain, but around the lessons I've learned from it. I've become more cautious, but also more honest with myself about what I want and what I deserve. I've realized I don't need someone who lies and cheats to feel complete. I need someone who respects me, who values me enough to be truthful, even when it's difficult. The experience has made me more aware of the signs I missed and more vigilant about protecting myself. I've also learned that sometimes the best thing you can do for your own happiness is to walk away from someone who is willing to be honest. That's what I did. I walked away from a relationship built on lies, and I refused to be broken by it. Instead, I chose to focus on my own growth, my own happiness, and restoring the trust I had in myself. To anyone out there going through something similar, I'd say this: don't let betrayal define you. It hurts, it shatters your world for a while, but you're stronger than you think. Take your time to heal, don't rush into anything, and remember that you're worthy of honesty and respect. Learn from what happened, but don't carry the weight of it forever. One day, you'll look back and realize that the pain was just a stepping stone, a part of your story that made you wiser, tougher, more aware of what you truly deserve. In the end, I know I'll be okay. I might be scarred, but I'm also free. Free from someone who lied, cheated, and didn't value me. And that freedom, that clarity, is priceless. I'll never forget what happened, but I will move on stronger, wiser, and more determined to find the happiness I deserve. Because if there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that the only person responsible for your happiness is you. And I'm finally taking that responsibility seriously.